I can't wait to join the call, and they're in the middle of a really loud conversation. Hello,
Yo.
HawK.
OLED.
HawK.
OLED.
HawK. When you talk in the Discord DM, right?
Mm-hmm.
The GIF that you have set as your Discord picture is activated.
Yeah.
So it looks like the little bird is talking.
Yeah.
I love it.
Intended feature.
I gotta hang on. I gotta share this with the class. I gotta. Can I just do like a one of these? Thank you. Here, talk. Say talk. Yes.
Yo.
Wait. Oh wait. I gotta click on the window. There we go. Say like the opening to The Great Gatsby.
What?
In my younger and more humbler days.
Damn, it's been a while since I ever touched that book.
Nah, it's okay. Just sing JoJo.
I believe it's in my younger and more vulnerable years.
I didn't know
true.
you could turn off. I didn't know you could turn off the animated part of it.
As a real Zelda fan, I'm very familiar with all of the works of Scott Fitzgerald.
I see.
There's like a really good Germa stream where he's just playing like some like pop star video game that like makes him sing, and at one point he just starts reading the first chapter of The Great Gatsby. It's really
Very
funny.
Classy.
So hello everyone, welcome to this week's special edition of Good Morning Source Gaming. This is gonna be apparently we're all a little quiet. Let me I'm not going to turn up my volume because then everyone goes, he's too fucking loud. So I'm going to give HawK a boost of 150, Raio a boost of 150. That'll be a mistake. And
you better believe it.
And Spazzy's already on 200. There's not really.
That's my only setting.
Yeah, I don't think there's much we can do unless we do an on the fly. I think that's as best as we're going to do.
I think it was my headphones. Oh, good. So
then we all just got fucking memed. Thanks, Nan. Always
amazing.
Always a pleasure. But welcome to this week's Good Morning Source Gaming. This episode's going to be perhaps a little shorter than usual instead of a little longer than usual, and by longer all the fucking time. This one might be closer to like an hour, 90 minutes, and that's because today we're just going to focus on one topic and one topic alone, which is the Switch OLED model, specifically how we got here.
You mean the Switch Pro, right?
Yes, the Switch Pro, because it's been here's my Beatles reference for the day. It's been a long and winding road, and I think it's very important that we actually take what the fuck the internet has been doing for the last 3 years, because this has to go back as far as like 2018.
It
like
does.
The Switch Pro shenanigans.
The Switch like came out and there were already rumors about a Pro, and like then there started being a lot
before that.
There's a lot more like concrete shit like recently with the Bloomberg.
This honestly dates back to wish fulfillment from when the actual specs of the
Yeah.
This all goes back to the Wii U being revealed, but but yeah, this has been a long time coming, and it's just like absolutely bizarre because I feel like we have learned nothing.
No. People are still saying the same shit too.
Yeah, like business has continued, like nothing happened, and the discourse has been real. But first,
and people have been getting so spicy and salty and all sorts of flavors.
Yeah,
it's crazy that there's this amount of people who are surprised that Nintendo does a slightly better version of the exact same fucking console. Like they haven't done this before.
Basically, we're seeing a changing of the goalpost.
Yeah,
literally since the original Game Boy, which then had the Game Boy Pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like Since the 1990s, this has been Nintendo's business model when it comes to handheld systems, which
Yeah.
that's
Our
what
most
the Switch
recent
is.
console was the fucking 3DS. What don't you guys get?
But first,
Well,
before
the problem is, yeah, that
Gentlemen.
it was not the new 3DS. It was the 3DS XL. And
Gentlemen.
people forget that. What?
we will get to this, but we must start off with some introductions and our favorite segment. What did we play this week?
Hey, Colin, I've been thinking if we
Yeah.
had some sort of jingle or something before we played that section, I feel like people would be a lot more engaged.
You're right. I should play the Sonic Unleashed E rating theme.
Yeah, I think we need.
I only want to do. Well, first off, let me introduce the cast of characters we have on today. There's me. There's Spazzy.
So,
There's HawK,
Yo.
and there is Raio.
Hello.
HawK is on because he has been my partner in schizophrenia during this entire Switch Pro debacle,
Yep.
and Raio is nice.
Oh, that's sweet.
We need a way to brighten up his morning after he pissed off all the Stan accounts last night. The only reason why I want to do the what we've been playing this week segment is because I want to talk about how a couple days ago I tried to stream the Sopranos PS2 video game, and it might have been the worst.
83.
It might have been the worst stream I've ever done because the game was
at least your worst Sopranos related stream by far. I'll say
yes,
that.
because the game is rife with licensed music, so I had to keep like muting and unmuting the game. But also the disc is scuffed, so it just stopped working after like 30 minutes.
Didn't
Oh,
it say
God.
like 83 read errors or something?
Yeah,
like that?
and I like 40 minutes in, I took the disc out of the PS2 Slim I had. I tried to clean it up with like a cloth, put it back in the PS2, still didn't read. Then I had to go get like my fat PS2, going, oh, maybe it's the disc drive, and just swap out the PS2, and it still didn't fucking work. And then I fumbled around my basement for 10 minutes setting up my Wii U so I could play The Godfather to somehow try and save the stream.
I love that.
It was that's all I gotta say. That's really all I gotta say about that.
It sounds like you played a very fun game.
The Godfather Black Hand Edition for the Nintendo Wii is a very good video. I was actually kind of surprised how good of a video game it is.
That would surprise me.
I miss the Wii. I think I've realized I miss the Wii.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Nintendo should introduce a sensor bar to the Switch and just go like all in with motion controls again, because like that shit is fun.
I always felt like Nintendo, in their quest to quote unquote innovate with these new gimmicks, they never really iterate on those gimmicks much. The Joy-Cons are kind of successors to the Wii remotes, but not really. Like they never make the last thing they have better. Like they're just like, and now for something completely different. And
yeah, that's kind of what happened with the Wii U,
Yeah.
where they introduced this big gimmick, and then they were like, the third parties are going to figure this thing out, not us. And it was like, what? But no, I'm playing this Godfather game, and like I forgot how fucking cool Wii controls could be, because the way beating the shit out of someone in The Godfather works is you press Z on the nunchuck to like enter into your Z targeting stance, and then you throw punches with either the nunchuck or the Wiimote, and it like replicates what arm you're swinging. And if you do like a motion where you swing across your whole body, it does like a long punch. You can hold like your arm back to charge it and then throw. And then if you hold B, you grab the person, and then the same controls kind of apply, like swinging the nunchuck, like swings your left arm, swinging the Wiimote, swings your right arm. But then like if you're near a wall, shaking both like presses the person you're beating up against a wall. Or if you're not near a wall, it like headbutts them. And I don't know, there was like something really fucking cool about that. There's something really neato about I don't know, developers like trying to use everything that was available to them.
I think the thing that came from all the experimentation with motion controls, it was actually more than anything companies getting ready to understand how to implement those sort of controls into VR.
Yeah,
I think that's where the next step of motion controls really is.
because the best thing this game does is that you have to manually turn on free aiming, because like those old Wii pointer controls are like the one thing that haven't aged like terribly well. Like it's
Right.
it's still fine, but it's like, you know, you really like, you know, like PlayStation Move and onward, you have that nice like 1-1 motion control that they had to like introduce with the Wii Motion Plus, and like that stuff feels fantastic. That's why VR doesn't just feel like waggling; it feels really smooth. But in The Godfather, they remedy this by having just like Z targeting aiming, where it just locks on to the person you're aiming at, and then you're like, all right, I don't have to fucking.
Some of those early Wii games, where they really tried to go all in on motion, but it was before the Wii Motion Plus, are just rough. Like the Dragon Quest Swords.
Yeah.
I tried
I
to
have
play
that
it
game.
a couple.
Yeah.
I bought it back when the Wii was a thing, and I never really got around to it. And I'd actually tried playing it a couple months ago, and it is not that fun.
Who made a Godfather game in 2007? You know, for the kids.
Who made a
EA
Warriors
did.
game and Warriors game around that time too? That was just like a thing that happened in that generation of games. Like
Fun
in
fact
sixth
about that.
to seventh generation, they did that a lot. That Warriors game was badass though. Now I want to play it again. That was a really good game.
Fun fact about that Warriors game: it was not made by Rebellion.
Really?
It was. There's this really weird thing where people have like this like Mandela effect that Rebellion made the Warriors game, but they
I
didn't.
thought they did.
So they always get people on their Twitter saying like, "Can you please make the Warriors HD?" And they were like, "We didn't." We didn't make that game. You know what game they did make though? Never Dead. Now that's a game they should bring back. Yeah.
Well, it was published by Rockstar, the Warriors game, but who actually like made it? Rockstar Toronto. Wow. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Rockstar published it, but I didn't think that they were the guys. Okay.
I think it's because like the Rebellion logo and the Warriors logo are kind of similar. So
yeah.
people just think, "Oh yeah, it was the same company."
Oh, it got me.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Was it not Rockstar? Yes, Dingy Bell Jr. It was Rockstar.
Spazzy, what have you been playing this week?
Different games on the Sega Genesis, or at least a miniature version of it.
Hell
What?
yeah.
Sega does what
Wow.
Nintendo don't.
I've been playing. Well, I'll just say it. I've been playing Crusader of Senti, which is like a Zelda clone for the Genesis. It's actually it's a fun game. Jex and I are doing it for a podcast series that we have, so I'll talk about it more in detail there. But yeah, it's like this weird Zelda clone for the Genesis, but all of your power-ups are like your animal buddies. It's kind of weird, but I dig it. I've been playing some Monster World 4 also, which is also an amazing game, and some of the X-Men Clone Wars, X-Men 2 for the Sega Genesis as well, which that game is awesome and might be my favorite X-Men game.
The Sega like Zelda clones are really fascinating. Like there's that one
There's
Golden,
Landstalker.
yeah, there's that one Golden Axe one on the Master
Yeah,
System
Master
that's
System.
like fascinating.
I think there's this was Crusader of Senti was a post Link to the Past, and you can definitely see the influence from Link to the Past in it, especially in the art design. One thing, like I said, I'm going to talk about this in length on a separate podcast, so I don't want to talk about it too much here.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is fascinating is people talk about like there's no such thing as Nintendo magic or Nintendo quality, but when you play games that are lifted from Nintendo IP, you realize that what Nintendo has is like just this eye for detail that a lot of other developers don't have. And this was a Sega game made by Atlas, actually, and they're those good developers, right? But things like The sound when you charge up your sword is so much better in Zelda. The hit detection is better. Like there's just there's like little things that make Zelda great and make games that are trying to be Zelda
you
not
can like see
as
that in
great.
like recent games too, because I like Genshin Impact. I play that quite a bit, but it's like compared to Breath of the Wild, there's just minute differences that really make it like apparent that it's like a completely different thing in spite of the similarities. So it's really there. Like there really is a Nintendo magic, even if it's something really small.
And I think it has to do with their quality control, honestly, and the type of polish that they try to put in their games. For as much as people are like, oh, they make like these cheap games and not these big, whatever, like AAA cinematic experiences that people are used to. They really put so much polish on something. Like, so when you play something like Donkey Kong Country, comparing like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze to that 2D ukulele is like kind of similar, where like it has more touches. Although that 2D ukulele game, actually, I was playing that because I have Game Pass, and that is fantastic. I don't remember what it's called right now, but that's also really good. But like you can always like I said, there's just something about the quality. But with comparing this particular game to Link to the Past, you could definitely tell. Like I'm like, yeah, like things just aren't as good in a lot of ways. But yeah, Zelda clones are in general, the 16-bit and 8-bit overhead 2D Zelda clones in particular, because 3D Zelda clones are like a completely different thing, are kind of fascinating, especially the ones that came after the Nintendo game, but before Link to the Past. Like the Newtopia games on the TurboGrafx, because like you can see an evolution of the Zelda concept without the influences of Link to the Past. Like I should do like an entire video just on all of these because there's a lot to talk about, and it's interesting. That Golden Axe one, by the way, is definitely better than the first Zelda. The Master System is like a really good system.
I love the Master System.
It just didn't have the third party support, but yeah.
I think like the reason for the Nintendo polish is just simply down to the fact that like if you were a up and coming game developer in the 80s, like your best bet was probably trying to get a job at Nintendo, because they seemed to be like the company that was on the up and up. Almost like,
for sure.
Like especially in the early 80s. That's what happened with Iwata. He was like, I want to go into game development, and then he's like, you know what? Why don't we hit up that Nintendo company that made that Donkey Kong thing? That could be interesting. Happy 40th to Donkey Kong, by the way. And
it's 4-0. Hey, it's a video game franchise that's older than I am.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
But you can kind of definitely tell that like Sega was, well, because Sega was weird. Sega like spent most of the 80s making like really rudimentary like games for their own consoles. People forget that Sega made consoles in Japan long before
the
Master System.
And Sega was an arcade beast at the time too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, and like, they were making stuff for
Harrier and stuff. Yeah,
for like the SG 1000 and 3000 consoles that were basically no more powerful than like a ColecoVision or something. And I think like it's very obvious when you see their own games. I would say the Master System is a system that is carried by its third party support more than its like own Sega support, because its own Sega support was like really bad conversions of Outrun, or like,
well, I mean, like, yeah, but there's some good ones.
But then there's also
like I was saying, Monster Boy was like those are good. Phantasy Star, I still like.
Well, what I was getting at is that like it's like you have these really bad arcade conversions because the hardware is not close enough, and then you have these games that are like trying to be, trying to beat Nintendo at their own game. Like, yeah, we can have our own Mario, fucking Alex Kid, something like that. But then it's like the second they started near the end of the Master System's life, when they started to go to the Genesis and they started letting their developers and their teams make really whatever the hell they wanted to.
I want to make a game about a dolphin.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's when you start. That's when you start going crazy. And yeah, the Master System did have third-party games. It's just like they weren't the same as the NES's, but like if you lived
the Master System had third-party games. Somebody, like I saw that in chat. They had the better version of Double Dragon. They had a really cool version of Ninja Gaiden. The thing is that Nintendo implemented. So Nintendo was such a powerhouse, and they implemented
like a non-complete
compete
compete clause. Yeah.
clause. So if you made a game for their system, for the NES, you couldn't make it for the Master System, which basically locked out support from Capcom, Konami, and Square, and Enix.
But the thing is,
were the biggest Japanese third parties at the time. So,
but the thing is that the NES didn't do too well in Europe, but the Master System did really well in Europe. So basically, who else was doing really good in Europe but the 8-bit home computers? So developers were bringing all their 8-bit home computer stuff over to the Master System, and that's really where the Master System gets like it's real. Like you can't look at its US library. You have to look at its PAL library, because the PAL library for the Master System is like, it's the best. A lot of the time, it's the best version of like 8-bit home computer games, and that's when you start seeing stuff like Psycho Fox, and it's like, it's cool. It's really neato.
Yeah, the Master System is. I feel like it's so underrated as a platform. I would have rather had a Master System Mini than a Genesis Mini, because like I feel like the Genesis games get rehashed so much, especially the first party ones, but just in general, like there's so many releases of them and this and that. But the Master System, especially in North America, really isn't that.
Who made games for the Master System but not the NES? EA.
Yeah. Phantasy Star. Yeah, Phantasy Star came out quick. Phantasy Star came out a month after Final Fantasy 1, and if you play both of those games back to back, you'll see that Final Fantasy looks and plays like garbage next to Phantasy Star. And both of them came out like, I think, right after DQ2, because they both were like, let's get on this. And DQ and Dragon's Quest 2 had a really fast turnaround after Dragon's Quest 1. They just kind of they're like, okay, then let's do that again.
Plus, if you like 2D Sonic, the Master System and the Game Gear have all the really cool 2D Sonic games.
All the good ones.
Yeah, all the good ones.
I like the Genesis Sonic games, but I will say that the Game Gear / and that's the thing. If you combine all the Game Gear games, if you include them in the Master System library, then the third party gets a little bit more diverse, because at that point the Genesis had already converted some third parties.
We gotta move on, but I will say, Spazzy,
I didn't even talk about Beyond Oasis yet, because so good. Okay, sorry, no, it's fine.
No, I was gonna say, I would love to hear your thoughts on Master of Darkness for the Master System, which was Sega's Castlevania competitor.
I've actually never played it. I
know,
I'm aware of it, but yeah,
that might be a good time. HawK, did you play anything this week?
A couple of things. Well, I played two things, but I wanted to get into one other thing. I played Zero Mission on the 3DS, just because I was interested in getting back into some Metroid stuff after Dread was revealed. Sorry. I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2. I think I've been doing that for like the past year and a half now. And I've kind of had the itch to go into MMOs in general, and I was interested in looking at like Final Fantasy 14 and seeing like what that's all about, because there was like some crazy resurgence in like popularity.
Fantasy 14 is a really good one. That's
I always think, because I played a lot of Final Fantasy 11, and I played way too much World of Warcraft for a while, and I'm always like, oh, I should get into Final Fantasy 14, but then I'm all like, I don't have time to play regular games. MMOs consume you, man. It becomes another job.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. I can't do it anymore. I used to like play different MMOs, but it's too much for me.
When I just finished college, and I had so I had a little bit of income, but I was still working like, kind of part-time, hourly, crappy jobs, and not a lot of responsibilities. Like I was like, okay, getting really into World of Warcraft.
Right.
but like, yeah, it's literally, it's like, especially when you play those games at a high level, you're all like, okay, I raid on Wednesdays, Fridays, and this. I got to do my quest this day and this day. I got to do this. It's too much, man. Like,
It's like a plague too, because like when one person starts, all your friends start to join on, and like if they have it. Like I was playing Skyrim recently, and then someone heard, "Oh, Skyrim, we should play Elder Scrolls Online." And now my entire group chat has just like moments in the morning where they're dead playing ESO.
Nice. I mean, yeah, like I mostly play games that my friends are interested in, and like that's usually what gets me to actually go out and buy like other games instead of just the same shit over and over again. But
Speaking
yeah,
of Zero Mission, though, this has been a big one for me to rack my head around because I'm a Prime boy. That's all I fucking like. I played with Metroid. Is Zero Mission the best place for me to start if I wanted to try like the 2D games, or is it one of the other ones?
I would say Super Metroid because it's on the Switch Online, so you can
it's free. It's free. So
just try it.
I would actually agree, not for the NSO bit, but just for like if you want like a good starting point for just a general 2D Metroid experience, Super Metroid is definitely a good one to start with.
Super Metroid's my favorite. A lot of that is probably nostalgia for me.
Like Samus Returns looked bad fucking ass. Like I was so excited for Samus Returns, but it was on the 3DS, and I don't really care for the 3DS. So like Dread being that but better is really exciting.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with Super Metroid. The controls feel clunky now. Like, so I know that you might go to it and be like, I don't like the way it feels, and that might not be what later Metroid games play like. Like, I think Zero Mission actually, as the last 2D Metroid that came out, actually feels, well, before Returns, feels the best to play. But I think the like everything else, the atmosphere, the actual level design and stuff is better in Super Metroid.
I play like Sonic games and fucking Banjo-Kazooie. I'm used to clunky controls and not playing.
Oh, that's
well.
what I was in the middle of saying before I got sidetracked, was that definitely the Master System / Game Gear version of Sonic 1 is better than the Genesis version. I really like Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 a lot. Sonic 1, though, like, it has a great opening stage, and that's all people really remember about it. But it gets, like, once you get to Marble Zone, man, that game's like, it's not bad.
They really baited people with Green Hill in that game.
Yeah, it's like Green Hill's so great, and then it's all like going real slow, pushing blocks, and then you go straight into like was it Labyrinth in the first game? I don't even remember what.
I believe it was. Yeah,
Labyrinth Zone. Yeah, it's like
every stage after Green Hill like sucks ass. So I can't remember them one to one, but I know that I don't like most of them.
Yeah. But I still argue that Sonic 2, 3, and Knuckles for the Genesis are great. It's Sonic 1 is just Sonic 1. But like play the Master System version and pretend that's Sonic 1.
Hell yeah.
Sonic 2.
All right, Raio, what did you play this week, or did you already?
Oh, what did I play this week? I played Sackboy: A Big Adventure with my girlfriend. It's actually really fun. I didn't think it would be like a good game. I was like, oh, Sony, haha, but I actually enjoyed it a lot. So
I feel like Rivers in our Discord was like, this is bad, and then for whatever reason played it a second time and was like, this is pretty good.
This is good. Yes. He does that a lot, though. He does that a lot. He's like, oh, this is garbage. Wait a minute, maybe not.
Hold on a second.
I had a significant amount of time off, so I played Skyrim again, and I don't know what it is about that game, but I fucking love that game so much.
Everyone loves to shit on Bethesda, but they do make some good video games.
They really do, and like I feel like every time I talk about, oh yeah, I'm playing Skyrim, my initial reaction I always get is, but why? Why don't you play Oblivion? But why? But why?
Because Oblivion isn't on the Switch. That's why.
I'm like, okay. I mean, yeah, I could be playing Oblivion, but I want to play Skyrim.
You can play some Morrowind, man.
Yeah, you could be playing Arena. What are you doing? Playing fucking Skyrim?
That's like whenever I go like, yeah, I'm thinking about playing Fallout 3 again, and they're like, why don't you just play New Vegas? I was like, 'cause I don't want to play New Vegas. I want to play Fallout 3.
Yeah. I didn't realize just like because going back to it after so long, Skyrim has pretty long load times on the Switch.
It does.
And I didn't think it was that bad until like I started playing and I like got on my PS4 to try it out and see how it was like the difference. It's pretty fucking bad.
As someone who has experience with playing Fallout on a crappy laptop, I'm just used to it. Like I'm just
right.
numb.
Yeah, so those are the two big ones. And I've been trying out Friday Night Funkin' because everyone's talking about it, so I wanted to see what the hype was all about, and it's okay. I mean, as far as rhythm games go, it's a rhythm game, but like I don't know. If you played Osu or like any of like the Project Diva games, like it's very different compared to that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's almost kind of weird how much it's like it's blown up. I mean, obviously it's because it's like this huge collaboration between all these different like Newgrounds artists, and that's really really more of the pull than the actual game itself.
I think the charm and like the art style, the music, all of that is like what people really liked about the game before it blew up.
Yeah,
and the rhythm aspect of it and like the game system and stuff like that is less because the game had some pretty shit input lag before, so like it wasn't playable in some cases, but it got better after the Week 7 update. It's not a rhythm game for rhythm game fans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because it's like somehow in a world full of Step Mania, Osu, and Clone Hero, it's just skyrocketed. It became the flavor of the month game for a while.
Right, exactly.
When will the next indie game fad be Katamari Damacy clones? That's what I'm waiting for.
That's a good one. That's a good question. I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but now that they're doing the full ass game, I kind of wonder, like, because for the most part they're doing those not weekly, but monthly updates of a different week added to the game every time. I wonder if they're going to continue doing that, because if not, I can see a lot of the appeal of the game like dying out just because it is one of those fatty games that just like it pops up and everyone's talking about nothing but that, and then like 3 seconds later Undertale 2 comes out and everyone's like, oh, this is the new thing we have to talk about. So I kind of wonder if they're going to try to keep that appeal by doing those updates, or if they're just going to wait until the Kickstarter project is like finished.
I don't know, man. I just want Clone Hero 1.0 out already. That's my thing. I just want to be able to zone out and just play Clone Hero for hours.
Go for it.
It sounds like a good time.
It is a good time.
So Colin, I just wanted to show you real quick. If you look in our call chat there, that's a screenshot from Crusader of Senti, or you go up the Tower of
oh my
Babel.
God, that's egregiously Zelda Link to the Past.
Oh, it is. But that particular character is playing guitar in this area.
Oh yeah, they look a little Johnny. They look a little Johnny Lenny.
And he says, "This is the only place I can play songs about love and peace without people calling me a geek."
Oh,
I love that.
Oh, that's a reference right there.
I just wanted to share.
Guitar Hero for Smash. I love that whenever there's like a fake direct leak, someone always is like, yeah, dude, Activision's gonna make another Guitar Hero, and I'm like, listen, I want that, but like, why would they?
Activision making another video game?
Yeah, making
Couldn't
not
be
Call of
me.
Duty.
No longer believable.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
I love that too. It's like, man, Crash bombed. What do we do next? Hey, what about that franchise that keeps dying? Let's do another one of those. We'll learn from our mistakes this time, won't we?
Okay,
consumers will prevail this time.
Someone just said the memes about Skyrim are really dry. Like, haha, Skyrim and Smash. But you don't understand how much I popped off when Sakurai posted the arrow knee fucking thing. I couldn't believe that shit. I felt like I was in a different world. Because I just picked up the game and then I saw that on my timeline. God.
Memes don't die off. They merely have a grace period where people just become uninterested until it eventually comes back into
exactly
the only long-running Skyrim meme is just that it's like ported to everything, which is like, yeah, no shit. So is like Resident Evil. Like it's not.
Yeah. That one does get old. When the Mii costume got revealed, everyone's like, "Todd did it again." I'm like, please shut up, please, God. Just let me enjoy my thing.
I like how they I think there was like legitimately a there was like legitimately an interview where they were like, Todd, when are you gonna like why do you keep porting Skyrim? And he's like, because it's a game that people
buying
like and people buy it. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
that, by the way, is a good through line to what we're actually talking about, because people seem to have this misconception that companies owe them shit and that they're entitled and that things are just for them. So they don't understand why, for instance, Nintendo would release a Nintendo OLED when, if you look at the video they released, there's millions of likes and not that many dislikes, because there is a market for it. So people will buy it. Like, you know, like they're like, why wouldn't Nintendo release this game for $40? I'm like, listen, there's a lot of shitty business decisions, but the problem is, like, when Activision releases Crash for $40, it's not because they're your friends or nice to you. When Sonic Colors is being released for $40 and as a complete remaster, and Nintendo's releasing a shitty version of 3D All Stars for $60, it's not because Sega is cooler and more about the fans. It's because they know it won't sell, and Nintendo knows theirs will.
I just want to point out, I'm sorry to cut you off, but Awdoodle said that Borderlands 2 is on more platforms than Skyrim, and oh god, that's true. Randall, why?
I like the Borderlands.
I know, but Randall.
I still haven't played Borderlands 3. I was all about the first two Borderlands games, and that one was just like, eh.
But yeah, there's like you're right on the money, Spazzy, and that is definitely something we gotta talk about. But I think we need to start. We need to really start with like the very beginning. We need to go back to the beginning of all this shenanigans, because
we will. We'll let's begin at the beginning.
Yeah, let's start. Like let's jump into it. So I guess where
Can you look
do
at that
we begin?
second picture I posted in our chat of Crusader of Santi, though? And I think we need to put that in the.
That's just straight up Sonic. Like that's just. That's straight up like. I
just want to share this with the people in the chat.
All right, and then, I'll put this on screen for a second, and then we'll continue. Yeah,
I
like how the image is Sonic appearing in a Zelda game.
Yes,
there it is. Look at Sonic just chilling out on his little beach chair.
Yeah, it's so if you want to play a Zelda clone with Sonic in it, you can do that.
But anyway, let's hop right into it.
I actually don't see it on the YouTube stream.
It'll come up. There it is.
Oh, okay.
But let's see. We got to go back, I guess, all the way to 2018. No, let's go back even further to... No, I think 2018 is a good starting point, because that's like when people were data mining the OS, and we found out there was going to be a new chip used in future...
Isn't that also when Emily made her statements about the Pro?
Yeah, I think so.
She talked about it in 2018, I'm pretty sure.
But yeah, in 2018, the OS was updated with references to a new chip, a new Tegra X1, that would be used in the Nintendo Switch at some future point. And that's kind of really where the Switch Pro rumor started off. Everyone was like, oh, there's a new Tegra X1 being made, the Pro is going to be faster. Because I think from the very beginning, obviously the real cornerstone of all this is the fact that, yes, the Switch is not the most powerful console on the market. You could even argue that it's the least powerful console on the market. But I think from day one, not even day one, I think before day one, people were already kind of misinterpreting or misjudging the actual power of the system.
If this was a dedicated handheld that came out, do you think people would be saying the same thing? If this was just a 3DS successor, right?
I think there would be, because of the new 3DS. I think the new 3DS and stuff like the DSi always kind of throws everyone for a loop.
Well, I was talking generally about the thought that the Switch is underpowered.
Yeah, I don't think that people would consider the Switch to be this underpowered, not a good console or anything like that, because if it were only handheld, people won't give a shit. It's a handheld console. I mean,
nobody would be able to compare it to anything.
Exactly, right. There's nothing else on the market.
It's the fact that the comparisons exist to begin with that people are making these.
Yeah,
judgments.
I quote tweeted somebody who apparently is I don't know, maybe a famous YouTuber or something. I don't know, critical something. I don't know this guy. I don't know anybody. I don't know who these people are. Like people expect me to know. I'm all like, I don't know, man. I'm almost 40. I don't give a shit about what you kids like. I'm old. I'm playing Sega Genesis games for God's sake.
Yeah.
This was the man. This was the man that got mad at Steve Minecraft. Get him.
I just want a grill, damn it.
But go on.
But I retweeted something and I'm all like, people are so salty because they didn't get something that Nintendo never promised or hinted at all. They got something that they convinced themselves was real that is not real. And then people were all like, no, he's talking about just the Switch in general and how backwards Nintendo is with technology. I'm like, that's a stupider statement because the Nintendo Switch is like 4.5 years old, and for a handheld system that is 4.5 years old, it was pretty great when it came out. Like, I mean, they could have pushed more, but for the price point that they had,
yeah, I feel like people. I mean, like obviously, it's there's been comparisons since day one because it's like, oh, it's $300. A PS4 Slim is $300. Like, how is it even going to compete when there's a better console for the same price? And then it's like it did good, and then it's like, oh, my smartphone has better specs than the Switch. Like, how is Nintendo going to be able to compete with smartphones? And it's like because it's a gaming device and it's different.
Yeah.
How much are those smartphones?
Yeah, it's
not only that, but if you want to talk about Switch's battery life all you want, but if you want to use your smartphone as a dedicated gaming system, you're going to burn it out quicker, and your battery's going to die, and all sorts of things. Like,
yeah,
it's good for. I mean, hell, a lot of people play. That's one of the biggest platforms for Fortnite. I mean, people game on their cell phones. It's not just Candy Crush, but there's a difference, man. There really is.
For sure.
Yeah. It's I've always see people bring up the comparison of like Fortnite on phones versus Fortnite on Switch, and I will concede that Fortnite on the Switch is pretty terrible. It's like it looks really crusty and like kind of runs bad. Meanwhile, the phone version of Fortnite can run at like 120 FPS, but the phone version of Fortnite also runs at like 560p and uses like PlayStation 3 level assets. Like everything has been like super simple. This is not me like shitting if you look at footage, like it's been like all the geometry and the models are like simplified. Like it's almost a radically different version of the game. It's kind of like how phone Genshin looks completely different than like console or PC Genshin.
Exactly. That was the exact thing I was gonna bring up. Like, if you're playing Genshin on a phone, you're not playing the real way that you should be playing it. Like,
but
you can play a game on a phone, and like they have it
as
like,
long as
for that reason. But
as long as you're getting horny for fake characters and spending money on them, you're playing Genshin the right way.
But
MiHoYo has had a success if you're doing that.
Yeah, right.
But going back, it's like this idea that like, because the meme is always that, oh, Nintendo makes underpowered systems, and I mean there is like a kernel of truth to that. They have been, they've always been following the Gunpei
yokai.
Logic
what was it? Gunpei Yokoi said, what was it? Withered technology?
It's like lateral technology or something.
Yeah.
Where the idea is like using older tech to do something new with it. But I think the thing about the Switch that most people forget is that like the Switch is kind of the opposite of that, because it's not like the Tegra X1 is this like beast of a mobile chip, but it also kind of is, like, for the time that it was developed and they put it into the Switch for that era of 2015 to 2017, like it's a chip that manages to put out like a lot of raw GPU power for very little actual power, and that's the reason why they went with it.
Nintendo got some sort of sweetheart deal on it. Wasn't that the rumors, because they overproduced them for some reason or something? I don't know. Yeah. Because normally I feel like a Nintendo handheld would have been more underpowered than what we got. And once again, I know the Switch is also a home console, but I mean, at its heart, I feel like it's a handheld. And not only that, I feel like people are like, it's like an Xbox 360, and it's so much more powerful than
Yeah,
an
it's like
Xbox
it's not.
360.
Right, yeah.
It's just
It's
like
definitely not.
outright not true.
Like if you just
Yeah.
want to just go like incrementally, the PS3 is more powerful than the Xbox 360. The Wii U is more powerful than the PS3. And the Switch is more powerful than the Wii U. I know it's not as powerful as, let's say, a base Xbox One, but it is considerably stronger than an Xbox 360.
People just do not understand power comparisons. Like
No.
they take something that they can look at and they say, "Oh well, that is so good looking. Has to not be on this baby game console." Like you fucking saw this shit with Mario and Rabbids when they reviewed that. They're like, "Oh, this looks amazing. It can't be on baby game console. Switch Pro Real."
But I think
I can't.
but the thing that people also tend to forget is like the way consoles are made is that they have to put like research and development time in it. Like there's a reason why when a new console comes out, like there's already like brand new PC components that are already better than it. There's a reason why, you know, they revealed the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, but like Nvidia's 3000 series is already pushing better performance out of them. And it's like, yeah, because you got to take like 2 years to make sure the thing actually works and has no issues, and you know, you can develop for it. And I mean, that's just what's going to happen with any technology, and that's not like a fault of Nintendo choosing the wrong chip at the wrong time. There's literally like they chose.
There's a lot of decisions that go, like a lot of factors that go into this decision.
They definitely chose the best chip they could have picked for a console that is a handheld console hybrid for $300, and they stuck to it. And in 2018, there was rumors of a new Tegra, which a year later they got vindicated because we got the Switch Lite, which uses a new version of the Tegra, and then we have the Switch V2 that people have called it, which is just like the enhanced battery model. I actually don't know what Nintendo calls it. I think they just call it the Nintendo Switch, and they have it like
some
it has a red box.
Some people call it the red box.
Yeah, the red box or the V2, but yeah, and it's like a silent revision because that's a thing that happens with consoles all the time. It's kind of weird. Like it's I think it's very weird with Nintendo because, as we were saying with the 3DS, like yeah, they released a lot of models of the 3DS, but it's also because like it's a tiny handheld system that you can do a lot of different models with. Because realistically, like if you own a regular 3DS, like, you don't need to buy the XL, and you don't need to buy the 2DS. Like, they were just for different people. Like, the 3DS XL was for an older market, and the 2DS was meant for, like, 5-year-olds. And then...
yes.
And then you have the... Like, you have to think of it in the way that, like, the new 2DS... Like,
what's funny is...
The new 3DS was the only real upgrade of that entire, like, generation.
Nintendo's never done...
power upgrades. They really haven't.
Mid-generation power. They've done like little things like the new 3DS, and I honestly wouldn't have mind like if they had let the chip run at its full clock speed and added some extra RAM. That would have been awesome. And if they had done, and when we talk about the rumors, I'm sure we'll talk about the fact that I think there was 4K output. I think in the dock at some point, and they said no, we don't need that. It's gonna add too much money to it. Also, I just want to get this out of the way because I can see the comments right now. We're not just Nintendo apologists. Like, I think Nintendo has some pretty shitty business practices. I think everything they do with those limited time releases is awful. I think their online infrastructure is abysmal. But I made a tweet this week, and I feel like there's, and it's funny because they're Nintendo fans too. There's two camps. There's the people that think that everything Nintendo does is great and defends them for everything, and then there's a group of people that, like we were saying, are super entitled, and they're like, I can't believe they're not coming out with a collection that includes every 3D Zelda game at once for $40. What are they doing? They're awful. Yeah. And you're like, well, of course they're not going to do that. You'll respond to them logically, because if they were to release Twilight Princess and Wind Waker as a collection right now, it would undercut the sales of Skyward Sword. That doesn't make any business sense. Why isn't Nintendo doing it? Why are you defending them? I'm not defending them. I'm just saying that if you step back and look at it, they're making smart business decisions.
Then they would say to that point that they should do it because Skyward Sword's a bad game.
Yeah, and you're like, that's the sort of logic.
Yeah.
And if you're on either, and the funny part is, if you make like a pro or anti-Nintendo statement, you will be. It's like everything. I feel like that's just life on the internet right now.
You can make the most neutral statement of your life, and you're going to be put into one of those.
One of those two, by people in that group, because we are very tribalistic.
But like that is the thing about the Switch OLED, is that like all this complaining, I feel like all this defending and complaining is almost exclusive to Nintendo. Because as someone who owns a lot of video game consoles, who the fuck cares?
Right.
Beetle owns two 2DS systems. That makes sense.
I had a PlayStation 2 at its launch. I didn't buy the Slim. Like, I had a launch PS3. I never bought the Super Slim or the Slim console.
I'm still rocking my launch PS4.
Yeah, I have like a 360 Elite model. It's like, I don't remember, like, we are releasing the Xbox 360 Slim, and everyone's like, what the fuck? Why should I buy that? And it's like,
yeah.
Like,
and the other thing is the actual mid-generation refreshes that change the specs. First of all, Nintendo's never done it, but second of all, like some with handhelds, but not to like a great degree. But even then, like that's only something that even Sony and Microsoft just did last gen. It's not like like people are acting like it's this industry standard that's been around forever when it's not. There's very little precedence for how it's done. And remember, last gen lasted like, I don't know, forever. Like 10 years, I feel like. I don't know exactly how long. I'd have to look it up. But it was a very long video game generation, and that is part of it. Nintendo, like the Switch hasn't hit peak sales yet. So to do anything that would possibly fragment the user base, because some games might not run or might not run well on the base Switch, which confuses consumers, when the system doesn't even need that sort of injection. The OLED is different because it's kind of a premium thing, and it's probably something that they intend to phase the original model out with. It's more of a replacement than anything.
Right.
Well, that's definitely something I want to talk about when I get to the rumors, because that's all about the new chip and the idea of a Switch Pro and all that. But yeah, like kind of reeling things back a bit. But there is stuff like the Switch Lite and the V2. They got a new chip. And then I would say, what is it, starting April 2019 with the 8.0 OS update. And the reason why I'm talking about all the OS data mining is because it's crucial. It's very important to all of this, because from the get-go, the Nintendo Switch OS and data miners like Skyrim Memes and Aurora, who have been putting in like all this work to basically like, read every string in the OS to try to find any new information about whatever Nintendo is doing. And they've been doing the Lord's work, because everything they have presented has been right.
Right, yeah.
And it's like no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just like they were right. And so in April 2019, there was an OS update, and then included strings for a new model of the Switch that was codenamed NXABCD. Me and Liquid even did a video on it, which we were horribly wrong about, because we talked about the whole what was it, Calcio, which was a prototype, and we thought that was a thing. And then the big meme with NXABCD. This is so interesting, fellas. NXABCD in April 2019 said there was going to be a new model with a new screen. And for some reason, everyone thought it meant a second screen. And that's what we reported. I said, oh, maybe it's VR. I was wrong. I'm stupid. But like, Since April 2019, we have known that Nintendo was working on a new version of the Switch that was more or less exactly the same, but with some new display type. And then in September 2019, I think that's like the first instance of it getting a code name, which I believe at the time was 5. And that started getting like more and more strings. And then you have like basically all throughout 2020, you have, you know, all of a sudden you started seeing new strings relating to a new dock. Wow. You know, like all of these things that effectively told us this console. And you know, if you're in our Discord, apologies, and you were in the Leaks and Rumors chat, apologies. You would have seen us talking about, you know, every time a new OS update came out, we would post the new data strings, and it's like, yeah, there's like, it's getting RAM configurations, it's getting like, there is like, it was just in the OS this whole time.
Yeah,
like,
hackers
just
and
is.
data miners are the best source of information because that's physical, actual data that you can look at and is real.
Yeah, it's the only tangible evidence of something.
Yeah,
other
and
than
it's
other than just
evidence.
other than just like word of mouth or like the written report,
rumors,
like,
or some guy in a factory in China leaking a photo. That happens occasionally, but for the most part,
like this is something that you can actually like look at, read through, and see.
But of course,
so good.
Of course, for some people, that's not enough. It's like, oh, they can't just be putting out a new version of the same console with a new screen and a new dock.
Right.
They can't do that. That's not cool and poggers.
Done for the last 10 years.
They can't do that. That's not cool and poggers. They can't what like they can't make an Xbox One S. That's stupid.
They can't sell me the same system. They need to make it bigger.
And then
it's literally the Xbox One S. All of that even had some, I think, more changes under the hood.
And then all of a sudden, you know, we were talking about this, and I mean, I think like by the end of 2020, like it was pretty obvious that like, yeah, this is just what's going to happen. Nintendo's going to make a V3. Yeah, like sort of a new red box system that just has a new screen and a new dock. And we might see it as early, you know, 2021, because I mean, that's what all these fucking insiders were saying too. They were like, because you had a Wall Street Journal and they were saying like, yeah, Nintendo's gearing up to make a new system, a new version of the Switch with a new screen. It's going to be out early 2021. And then it didn't happen. And then all of a sudden, out of fucking nowhere, new chip.
Yeah.
New chip. And it's like, what? And it's like all these insiders just started saying, yeah, new chip.
New chip, DLSS support. It's gonna, and the only way you get 4K is through DLSS, not even through proper upscaling. Just like, so just rapid fire. And
we started seeing shit like, you know, we see a trailer of Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah. Ooh, that looks too good for the Switch. That definitely has to be on the Pro model. That didn't happen.
We see a fucking cartoon game, Mario and Rabbids. Oh man, look at how much better that is in the first game. It's gotta be.
You see
Pro.
Pokemon Legends that can barely run at 5 frames per second. Oh my god, that's totally pro material. You see Breath of the Wild 2 that literally just
is the same fucking game.
It's Breath of the Wild.
And all the time, these insiders are not actually telling us what this new chip is. They're not telling us like any details. Apparently, it is sensitive information, despite the fact that apparently they are also saying it's supposed to be out this year, which would imply that Nintendo has been R&Ding this thing, and when they say like developers already have it in hand, that should also imply that they've been making them. Especially, it's so. This is the whole thing about the new chip. All right, here, let me get this out of the way so everyone can clip it out of context and put it on Twitter. Nate Drake blown the fuck out, Jeff Grubb damage control, Imran saying whatever the fuck he's saying, Bloomberg run by Michael Bloomberg, Jason Schreier. I'm gonna say nothing else. I don't want to get blocked. There you go. There's all the coping and seething. Anyway, here's the thing, because I don't want to be that guy on Twitter that's like, oh, these guys were just baiting for clicks. These fucking lying assholes.
Yeah,
because
I don't think that's the case at all.
Because don't do that. Don't harass them. B, I don't think they're lying. I think the problem is they were conflating information
from two different
that they
things,
heard, and they were trying to, attach that to the information of a new system that was coming out.
That happens a lot.
It does happen a lot, yeah.
For instance, here's a very simple example of it. Our good friend, Liam Robinson said, who did a lot of leaks. He said back in the day that he knew 100% Shovel Knight was going to be the next Smash person. And he got a lot of shit for saying Shovel Knight was going to be in Smash as DLC. Because he wasn't.
And
but the thing is, the reason he thought that is because he saw design documents for the Shovel Knight amiibo. Before then, they weren't doing third-party amiibos, number one. Number two, the amiibo lines were limited, so the actual base that he saw it on was a black base like the Smash base, and not the base that it eventually came with that figure. So he saw information, he had other information, and he came to a conclusion based off that information. And I think that happens with people that have legitimate information a lot, especially because they're not going to tell you the details, and they shouldn't tell you the details all the time of their sources. So they just see something, they're like, no, of course there's an amiibo for Shovel Knight. I saw it because I saw amiibos, and so Shovel Knight's going to be in Smash. So you'll see information, and they're not lying, and they have legit information. It's just, it becomes conflated with other things. So,
but the real two issues that I have are, one, the fact that all of these guys are buddy, and they crack jokes all the time about this shit.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious
smug about it too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious that they're doing this because it's like, we know they know stuff, and engagement's always fun, all that good stuff. But there also just is like, I think Tim Rogers put out like a really good tweet thread this past week where he's like, oh, my sources are telling me that Breath of the Wild 2 is gonna come out next week, and then like he immediately makes a follow-up tweet where he's like, oh, I'm having so many people asking me what day I should expect Breath of the Wild 2. I was joking, you guys. Can't you guys know when I'm joking? And it's like that's what happened with, like, I don't think insiders should get shit for stuff like this, but I do think it is really fucking weird that all of a sudden at 1 a.m. on Wednesday night, they're like, hang on, my sources are telling me a new Switch model announcement is imminent. It might be this weekend. And then like when it doesn't happen, they're like, I was just kidding around. Like you can't throw that back at me. And it's like, you could have said nothing.
Yeah, they hop onto shit way too easily, and especially in regards to that particular situation. When Mochizuki put that in his report that like week prior, the part where he's saying like where he thinks that there could be an announcement just so that like other like game developer partners would reveal their games for this other system. That was speculation. That was worded specifically to be a literal guess. There was at no point where that was even included as like a genuine report as that was going to happen, and then everyone just took off. They're like, oh my god, it's going to happen. I trust my friend, my buddy so very much that I'm gonna say that it's actually happening.
But
everyone jumped onto it.
The second thing, though, that is the thing that is the reason why we're in this mess, that I, to this day, don't understand, is that the claims themselves don't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
Because, as I was saying before, you got to R&D a console. That takes time. That can take years. And then you gotta, pump out all the different pieces. You gotta pump out the board, you gotta pump out the chip, you gotta pump out the RAM, you gotta pump out the screen. And then you put all that stuff into manufacturing. Then you actually have to make the thing itself. And they don't put these systems into manufacturing a month before they go live. They gotta stockpile them. They gotta make sure they have a lot of stock of them before they're out. And I mean, Emily even said, like, isn't it interesting that they're already, like, manufacturing this new Switch model? She didn't say what it was, but she said, yeah, they're already manufacturing it. And I was hearing from people that they already started production on them in late 2020, which also makes sense because people were expecting it to be in early 2021, and there is a chip shortage. And it's funny because they were even pushing the narrative that the chip shortage is like, oh, well, that's the reason why they're making a new chip is because
I'm not gonna say any names, but there were tweets from some of these insiders like the day before saying like, "Oh yeah, but the new one shouldn't be affected by the chip shortage because it's a different chipset." So
yeah,
don't worry.
the narrative kept changing. It was like oh, they're switching because of the chip shortage, and it's like, oh, well, this new one shouldn't have any issues because it's a different chip, and then all of a sudden, this thing gets announced and people are going, oh, well, they had to go with the Marico because of the chip shortage. They couldn't produce the new chip. And it's like, not only is everyone just changing their narrative, but it doesn't go back to the fact that the whole new chip narrative itself doesn't make any fucking sense. And it blows my mind that all of these people who they don't... I'm sure people like Nate and don't consider themselves journalists, but they do talk about.
I don't consider them journalists either. What?
No. But what I'm saying is like the fact that they talk about this stuff at length, like they are the premier source on this stuff, and they
right
seemingly did not think for a second that like, oh yeah, Nintendo just swapped to a new chip and it's going to be out in 6 months. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm not going to use the term gamers because A, it's dumb, and B, it doesn't even really apply. Most fans of video games and what I mean by that is because a gamer would implicate you're somebody that plays games. A lot of people play games, but there's people that are just fans of the industry, which is, and it's like. It's like calling people, movie watchers. Like everyone watches movies. Yeah, but then you have like, your cinephiles, which are people that are really into it. And then you have people that actually just follow industry news. So like, I don't even know what you would call that, because
armchair analysts.
Yeah, that's the thing is you're more interested.
That's me.
And it's like that for everything, even for for video games, for movies, for music, for sports. You've got people that spend more time every week talking about what's going to happen in the next game than what happens in the game, and that's its own little pocket industry. And the thing is that more people get their quote unquote gaming news from YouTube channels like this and from podcasts like this than from anything that we would consider traditional game journalists. Like they have more clicks than IGN, and nobody reads anymore. Like that's just the way it is. Like, so whether you like it or not, people like Nate have a higher reach with fans of the industry than like IGN does. IGN. And I'm just bringing IGN because they're an easy one, to talk about, and because they're still have more legitimacy than something like Kotaku, even though they're IGN. But they're just there to provide an article that someone can reference while doing a YouTube video. Like that's just how it is. Like. So whether somebody like that, I personally get more of my game news from Spawnwave than I do from anything else. Like, because in the mornings when I'm at work, I'm like, he does a really nice, concise thing, hits most points of the industry, dig it. Like, and he says it too. I'm not a journalist, and he's somebody that does things with Nate, so it's even better to bring it up. Yeah, you guys aren't journalists, but you're still our source for news for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's just like this whole narrative of a new chip, like it doesn't add up. Like it never did, and that's the reason why, like none of this made any sense. To be fair, it wasn't like IGN wasn't saying new chip. I mean, Bloomberg was saying a new chip, though interestingly enough, they stopped mentioning it in later articles. Though they also had to like print a correction saying like, oh, we heard of a new chip and we just figured it was part of this new Switch model we heard about, which is, yeah, that's exactly what happened. But I feel like all of this just like crucially misses the point of like, basically, I think before they actually showed off this like OLED model, you pretty much had two camps. You had one camp that was pretty much believing the data mines and saying, yeah, it's going to be a new system with a new screen, new dock. It's going to be using the same old Marico chip. And then you had this new camp that was just like, oh yeah, it's going to have a new chip in it. And it's like, you know, I don't want to make, you know, like teams and camps, and because it's fucking stupid. Who cares, you know, who is actually right and wrong? But I do think it's important to talk about because one has context clues and information and source and evidence, and the other was hearsay. And when you look at what was going on in the data mines, you get a very accurate depiction of how a console is made. They were, you know, you had a prototype name in April 2019, and then it just got more and more information attached to it as time went on over the course of 2 years. And then it kind of came to a head earlier this year where there stopped being new strings attached to it. And then they announced the thing. And it makes sense, because you're like, yeah, that means they research and developed this thing for 2 years. They got to a point where they came up with a finalized design. They started manufacturing of it. And then they announced it. That's how things are made. That's how tech is made. That's just how this stuff works. The narrative of, oh yeah, there's a new chip. It's so much more powerful. We can't say any information about it. Some developers already have it. It's coming out this year. It's like, well, if you can't say any information about it because the information is too sensitive and it might go back to someone, that means that not enough people have their hands on this chip to prove that, you know, there is something tangible. It means that only like very, very, very close. I mean, I don't know who the source is. I can't claim to know who it is, but I would assume that if it is that sensitive information, it's probably someone tied to Nintendo's research and development team. If all they can say is new chip without actually saying any new information about it. And it's not like they didn't know. They did know. They just straight up said they were not able to disclose it. And that ignores, you know, having to do all this research and development and going into manufacturing and even rolling it out to developers so they know if their games even work on the thing.
They also said that they were not able to disclose any of that like specific information 6 months after the fact of the reports of this stuff actually coming out from either source, either point of information. You know, like it's this long string of like rumor after rumor after rumor has just been the same thing on repeat for the past couple of months. And even though like we can pull this thing all the way back to 2018, like even then the discussions were really just about something entirely different, but something that at least existed. Like people would talk about and speculate whether we get like a more enhanced version, like a DSi or a new 3DS version of the Switch, like back then. And when reports started coming out, like the Wall Street article about the like handheld specific Nintendo Switch, and then a new like other like console that was built for, you know, the avid video gamer, that was just the refresh. It was the same hardware. It was the same system. They just saw it in a different way. They were told something entirely different that didn't reflect the reality of the situation. And now, once we're talking about a 4K console with a new chip with NVIDIA's, you know, super sampling technology, and we get the OLED model, even though we did get reports of OLED screens, 7-inch OLED screen, we're now back at the same situation where, yeah, it has always been one console. Here it is. The OLED is the Nintendo Switch Pro that these people have been reporting because it's the only console that has, like, it's the only console that we can at least say exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has existed. It has not changed in 2 years. There's no there is literally zero.
It actually matches everything that was data mined from the OS.
Like there is no change in the story. There's no change in the narrative. There, like, all of the shenanigans of like, oh, the Tegra X1 Plus is actually going out of production and DLS. It's all bullshit. That's sourced from nothing. And it wasn't
all of the I think there is very likely, because I don't think people like Nate and are making shit up. I think there's definitely some sort
I don't think they're lying at all.
And I think the chip is a real thing. And I guess we'll get into what we think that means later. But like, where the fuck does this chip shortage come in? Because that doesn't make any sense. Was that just flavor that was added in by someone?
There was a report that TSMC, who makes Nvidia's chips, started to hike prices.
Yeah.
And so there was a rumor that Nvidia was like, fuck you, we're going to go with Samsung and make a new chip with Samsung, and it's not going to be Americo because we've been making the Tegra X1 for too long. We're just going to make a new chip. Which would imply that they were basically like, hey, Nintendo, I know we have a good working relationship, but that costs too much. So fuck whatever you're doing or planning right now. We're just going to switch over to something new, and you're just going to have to deal with it if you want to keep making money.
You,
which is like ridiculous. It's like, it's such a ludicrous story that I almost believed it for a second, because I was like, it's so silly it might be true, but it wasn't. Of course it wasn't.
Everything about the Switch Pro is silly.
It is.
Everything that's leading up to this.
So just real quick, Doodle said, to be frank, it wasn't like IGN wasn't saying new chip. My point before, when I was talking about these channels whether or not they're journalists, isn't that quote unquote legit journalistic outlets weren't saying the same thing, because they were, because let's be frank, they are in it for the clicks just as much as anybody else. Mm-hmm. But what I was saying is that there is not necessarily responsibility, because it's just video game news. It's not like, we're reporting on
it's not responsibility, but there's accountability. Like,
exactly.
This is actually like
I'm just saying that these outlets they're saying I'm not a journalist, but they are just as legitimate, if not more so, in the eyes of the average quote unquote gamer. That's what I meant by that.
Exactly. And the thing is that, and I was even saying this about there was I had a big Twitter discussion about this a couple months ago, where it was like, oh, I forgot what the full context of the situation is. I think Spazzy, you had tweeted out something I did, and they were saying like, oh, well, and someone said like, oh, well, it has to be a new chip. How else would there be DLSS? And I said, that's the thing. There is no DLSS. It's not a new chip. And it became this weird back and forth about like the credibility of all these insiders and the credibility of Bloomberg. And the thing is, and I've been saying this from the get-go, is that like it's not about credibility. This is all very low stakes. Like, Bloomberg is a business outlet. They publish also the same rumors about like every fucking month about Apple making a car that like still isn't real yet. Like, it's just like hearsay to them. So it's like, I don't think anyone's gonna go like, damn, I'm never gonna read Bloomberg again after they got the new chip in the Switch wrong, when they were right about everything else about the system. And it does come down to the fact that the reports of there being a new chip are true. Just not in relation to this model, because we do have a trusted Nvidia insider coming out and saying, yeah, look, new Tegra chip is coming out in a couple years based on the Ampere line. And this smaller variant, that's what Nintendo's going to use in a new model.
Yeah, and this is somebody from a completely different branch of leaking things. He's an Nvidia leaker. He's not anything to do with Nintendo. And it seems to line up to what other people were thinking.
Yeah, that makes
this
sense.
Switch
It's
event.
crazy. It's almost like there's two different consoles, or like there's two
Yeah.
different things going on.
Can I,
For whatever reason, we all narrow tunnel vision to the one.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
Can I ask a question real quick? Because I don't follow this as much as you do.
Mhm.
So there were. It does look like at some point there was going to be in the new dock for this some sort of 4K output. Not
Yeah.
that it would upscale, but 4K output. Where does that come from? I don't remember.
So in the OS, there is references to a new dock using a new like Realtek SoC,
Okay.
and Scary's M, who is like the big Switch data miner, says that also there's also like a reference to a DisplayPort to HDMI conversion that would handle 4K, and it is totally possible that the new dock is capable of processing 4K video, which makes sense. I mean, the Switch itself can do it. They just don't have it on. They just didn't engineer the system to actually do it, because nothing's running at above 1080p anyway.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I also, like, in regards to this, I don't even think, like, at this point, I feel like it would be reductive to say anything from the data mines is wrong.
Okay.
Because they got literally everything correct. So one small detail not being present doesn't immediately, like, you know,
right.
push
But
over this
because
house
there-
of cards.
But I think Bloomberg actually were one of the sources that said that there would be 4K output. So there might have been it might have been included at some point, and then just they realized that it's not cost effective and doesn't have much benefit because nothing's really outputting in 4K.
Well, I think what's actually more
Likely?
because what's more likely, because the string never went away, it's probably in the new dock. They said that apparently even though this new dock is compatible with the old Switch, you will have to do a system update, which, like, generic USB-C hubs are compatible with the Switch for dock mode. So the fact that this new one would need a system update to recognize it makes me think that I mean, it probably is totally using a new chip that has all of that information and capabilities there. It might just not be utilized, kind of like the USB 3.0 port on the original dock. Like, it's there, it's built in. It's they can turn it on, I guess, with time, but they just aren't. It's just in there, which sounds a lot more likely than, oh yeah, this thing that told us everything about this console is just like, they got this one thing wrong. It's like,
I think that there's a point in time where the, like, whoever it is that these guys are sourcing their info from, I think a lot of it could just be that they looked at either a concept or a plan that was so early on in, like, in development, to the point where it's just either outdated information or it's something that's being used for an entirely separate project, and it's getting to the point to where it's like, we don't even know which is which, because now we're getting a brand new narrative of, like, you know, the Nintendo Switch Pro does still exist and it's coming out in like a year or two. Like,
Okay,
I said this like
which I don't buy.
Pisses me off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't buy that at all.
No. And that's the thing that I'm like, when this OLED model came out, that was the number one thing that I was worried about, was that, like, people are going to be like, they're going to be super dismissive that, like, you know, this is the thing that, like, oh, I was wrong, or I got wrong information. I genuinely did not have any faith in any of these people that they would say that, like, they got something mixed up, but instead push the goalpost to about a year or two.
And
That's
here's
exactly what happened.
And here's the thing.
And
I don't like, this shouldn't be a case of whether or not I'm right or wrong.
right.
I'm not getting any vindication for talking at length about any of this. Like, I'm
Yeah.
seriously not trying to gloat. I'm trying to get
Ours is a cautionary tale.
hence
Yes.
the name of the channel and the website. I'm trying to get to the source of all this.
Yeah.
because I like, this is how misinformation spreads. This is how we get into these weird hype cycles of either hyping things up way too much or being disappointed. Because as I was saying for months now, like, I believed it was, I believed the data mines. But if I was wrong, if the case of all these insiders saying, oh yeah, no, it's this thing with a new chip and it's coming out this year, if that was right, I mean, cool. Either way, I'm getting a new, cooler, better thing of a thing I already like. Like, that's
Right,
like
yeah.
completely out the window. Either way, I win my win because I get to continue enjoy the Nintendo Switch family of video game consoles.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to, like, I do think it's important to call these things into question. And really legitimately, like, try to figure out, like, well, like, what the fuck? Like, why did we go on these tangents? Why didn't we believe the data miners? Why did we, like, why were we not believing the data miners who were giving us all this information? They had a complete and utter, like, full narrative with reason. Scaries was saying things like a new chip wouldn't make sense because they would have to recompile, like, every game for the new console. Which makes sense. If there is a new chip that is substantially more powerful than the Marico that's currently in the Switch, and like, to the point where it almost makes the original model obsolete, they probably would have to do what the Xbox Series and the PS5 are doing, where they're running it through almost like hardware emulation as opposed to, just native backwards compatibility. It's like, why were we so dismissive of all of this, like, completely factual information and saying, oh, well, that might just be old information, that might just be, like, false information, that they might just be guessing based on the OS. But we were believing people who were, more inclined to withhold information about their own, what they were presenting. They were withholding information. Like, you can't say they weren't.
And
they were.
Leakers obviously need to protect their source, and they never need to tell where they got the information from. But
Right.
when all you give us are kind of, and it's weird because, and that was the other thing that I thought was very weird about this, when the 3DS specs leaked, and when the Wii U specs leaked, and I'm just keeping it in Nintendo for right now, we had a lot more details on this, and
Yeah.
I guess there were a lot of details reported. Maybe I wasn't following it up that closely, but there was, like, while I don't think you should ever have to give too much information, you should at least provide some clarity on your information. It was more like what the chip could do, and not like what it was. You know what I mean?
There was even stuff for the Nintendo Switch itself. Whenever the NX was all the rage amongst the
we had a picture.
Speculation.
We had a picture of Project Cafe. We had a picture
we had
of the PlayStation 5 dev kit, like a year
we had reports
before
about the fucking
they were revealed.
We had stuff about, like, the controllers. We had patents and trademarks. We had, like, I think there were people who were talking about them using a custom NVIDIA GPU. It was only until, like, very later on that we learned it was the Tegra. There were specifics. There were things about the actual chassis of the hardware itself, the functionality, the features, right? It wasn't just, like, marketable words on top of marketable words and vagueness, which is exactly what we're getting right now.
Yeah.
This is and I am absolutely going to use this phrase because it's very ironic to a conversation and a narrative that was pushed against the data mine stuff. This is literally 1/10 of a pie. It's a mountain out of a molehill, right?
Yeah.
The conversation around the data mine stuff was incredibly, I would say, not volatile, but incredibly dismissive of the actual facts and information that was available to us, to the point where even the data miners themselves were being made to look like literal random people who were just voices on the internet and not homebrew devs or people that are responsible for,
which really
like,
fucking blows. Which
yeah,
really
yeah.
fucking blows.
And
the thing that gets me so much about this whole Switch Pro thing is that it's really an example of the bigger number is the more reliable source, no matter what the fuck you're talking about. Which sucks ass, because like there's hard evidence in these files that we had, and nobody cared because Nate said something else. I mean, like, that's really what it comes down to.
And once again, I don't want to make it sound we're shitting on Nate. It's just that he kind of became the face.
It's just a real fun name to bring up.
Everyone should.
It's easy to hate. It's in his name. I don't hate Nate.
No, nobody hates Nate. Like I
mean,
think
I'm sure some people
hate
Nate, but nobody
probably
here hates Nate.
But it's funny because
who are way too dedicated. Yeah.
Like there were developers like Aurora, and she is like one of the many who make Atmosphere, which is like the Switch hacking tools and everything. And I mean, she put a thread on Gaming Leaks and Rumors, r/Gaming Leaks and Rumors, that's like, guys, why aren't we believing the data miners? Like this, like, we have all this information.
Yes,
and she made this great long post, and literally just the people in the comments were like, why should we believe just some people on the internet and not
other people on the internet?
Yeah, other people on the internet.
The sheer irony.
Yeah, Odd Doodle just said Steve from Good Vibes Gaming, formerly of the Game Explain, was saying he knew people who were devs and Switch devs, and none of them had any sort of pro dev kits. That's something else I was talking to you about, Colin, is that whenever this happens, if there was a pro with games that were very specific to the pro,
developers would already have them, and they would say things about them because they have the hardware.
And things would start to leak, because things don't leak as much at Nintendo, but they sure do at like Capcom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
No. There's not like that's the thing, is that there wasn't anything that presented itself to say that there's going to be a significant change in the Switch's market. There isn't going to be like Switch only for the pro games or anything like that. Like, everything was pointing to a minute change, something small, which the OLED ended up being, which it's great, it's cool, it's whatever you want it to be, but like, it wasn't a pro. There was never anything that was going to say that it was going to be a pro. And like, sure, I believe there's going to be a pro later on, because this console, they're going to milk it for a long fucking time. This is a very successful console. It's just like the DS. They're going to make an improvement to it. I don't doubt that. So now is not the time. I mean, like, why would you right now? The original model is still selling like massive right now.
Here's the thing, right? Like, that's actually kind of the thing that irks the shit out of me through this whole thing. Is it's like, people have these expectations that Nintendo's going to put out a console, then they're going to put out another console that obsoletes it in like a year or two, right? Like, people say this all the time. Why are we upset that they're not doing that?
Does everybody remember there were Wii HD rumors the entire lifespan of the Wii until the Wii U released? Like, literally.
Like,
then we did get a Wii HD, but it was called the Wii U, and it was a successor system, which I think is probably what's going to happen here.
Like, I get it. Like, you know, you have every once in a while, you have like an Age of Calamity or the Outer Worlds on Switch that like doesn't look too good, doesn't run too hot. But it's like, why are you so hell-bent on wanting to pay Nintendo like $300 to $400 for something to replace something you only bought a couple years ago, when they're more so giving you, like, it's so funny how the narrative of the reaction to the OLED is, why should I buy this, and not like, oh cool, there's not a thing that came out within 4 years that made this other thing I have just a useless piece of shit.
To be fair, there are, and number one, I think people that want it because they want the Switch to keep up with third-party like parity is weird, because most of those people already have another system.
Yeah.
So like, it's like a weird thing that you just, and they just want to be able to.
Well, it's weird that they're concerned about third-party parity when A, they usually own another system, and B, the Switch still hasn't had third-party parity at all throughout its life.
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
Nintendo console.
I get it, because there are games like Age of Calamity is definitely one of them where I play this. I'm like, man, I would love to play this on more powerful hardware. And personally, I'm not going to go out and spend $300 on a Switch OLED, you know, the OLED, but I will I would have been tempted to spend $300 on something that would, make the colors load faster on Smash, stuff like that.
So,
Like,
I agree. I personally wouldn't spend $350 on this system. However, I totally would trade in my current system and games I don't play for a reduced price for the same system.
yeah, and like this is,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is that I won't buy this unless my Switch breaks or something.
Right.
But I think this is something to, and people are also talking about the price, and yeah, like I honestly don't think it should have been. I think it should have been priced at 300.
I think the biggest mistake they did. I think let's actually talk about the Switch OLED for a second. I think the one mistake of the system, I think the one mistake they've done is not just like killing off the V2 model entirely. I think what they should have done was just say, hey, we're going to stop making the V2 and we're going to have two versions of the OLED. One is 32 gigs and one is 64 gigs. The 32 gig is 300, the 64 gig is 350. Because like I don't think the price of the OLED isn't justified. There's enough like it's the price difference is no worse than like when they have an iPad with a bigger screen and bigger storage.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, those are like the differences of a couple $100 and not $50.
So here's something that's very funny is that the Switch has had a lot of mainstream crossover. A lot of that's actually due to Animal Crossing, which is, software sells hardware. But so you get eyes on the Switch that you might not get on like the PS5, for instance. So there are some people that just review mobile things like tablets or phones, and they think this is a good upgrade because they're used to iterative upgrades on phones that have a nicer camera and a new color and are $300 more. They're like, so when you think of it like that, and by the way, the most disingenuous tweet I've seen based on this is one that has the Xbox Series S, the PS5 shit model. What's that one called?
The digital,
the digital. Yeah. And the Switch OLED, and be all like, which one of these would you buy with their price points? And I'm all like, well, if you're gonna be using the entry level models, why aren't you putting the Switch Lite, which is cheaper than all of them? That's the actual entry level model, not the,
right. Yeah,
that's so dumb. But yeah, like when you think of it in terms of something like a phone upgrade, it's actually pretty substantial. It's just that we're not looking at it like a mobile device. We're not even looking at it as a handheld system, which is what it is. I do like, I understand that it's because the Switch is still selling so well, but honestly, at this point in the Switch's life cycle, I would have liked to see the base model go down $50 and this replace it.
But also here's the thing.
It's 4 years old, man. It's not a new system.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and Audoodle brings this up. The price difference isn't bad, but I think it being a different price makes it feel a weird half step to me when I wish it was like the second model of the GBA SP. But the thing is that's really funny about the Switch OLED that no one's talking about is that the entire system is different. Like
the chassis is completely different.
the body of the system is completely different. They didn't just throw a new kickstand on there. They didn't just make a new dock. They didn't just put a new screen in. Like they redesigned the entire Switch. And like
it's a DS to the DS Lite,
and obviously like that doesn't make for great discussion. I get that it's not exciting.
Yeah.
It's only exciting to people like me who think that it's cool they just like redid the whole thing. But it really is no different than them releasing like a slim model or just like a model with QOL updates. I mean, that's basically like, I think the major difference is the fact that it got a price hike, which I do kind of, which, as I said before, I do kind of agree that slapping $50 onto it, which even though I think it's justified because I think they are adding enough to it to say that, yeah, it is worth, like, if I was just some random guy and I didn't own a Switch, like, yeah, I would throw down $50 for the slightly better model with the better dock and the better screen and all, and like more storage. Like, I think it's there when compared to like how tablets and phones are sold. Like, it really isn't that big of a deal. But I definitely like do agree that that yeah, like they should have tried to ease out the other models. Or I mean, they're going to keep the Lite around. Honestly, if there's a new Switch model in the next year, it's an OLED Lite. Like that's just what it's going to be. Like they're going to do a big QOL update for the Lite. Like that's all.
And
that
that's
can
something
really...
I would be more interested in, because if there's not going to be a performance upgrade, I would just keep this Switch docked, and then I'd have a portable dedicated Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly kind of disappointed by that. I thought there was going to be a performance boost because God knows the Marico chip is running slow. Like it's not running at full speed. We all know the Switch chip doesn't run at max speed due to battery life
is capable of more.
Yeah, it is capable of more, and we've seen video producers like Digital Foundry who do say that, like, yeah, like they could easily bump the clock speeds of the Switch just like a bit higher. Like,
here's things that they could have done from a performance perspective that obviously we knew it wasn't going to happen because of the data mining. But I think could have been done and would have got me to buy a new system is additional RAM, faster clock speed, and battery improvement. The battery improvement's a little iffy because you don't want it to be running super hot. Same with the clock speed.
Yeah.
But if it had those three things, which are relatively minor but could make things run better, that's enough of an upgrade for me.
I think with the amount of headroom that the Switch has, like the new chip, the Marico chip has, because it does run significantly cooler and uses less power. That's why the battery life is better. I think they could have gotten docked level performance in handheld mode, and that would have been perfect. Because at that point, like all your frame rates are stabilized in handheld mode, and like games are going to hit native resolution like a lot more often. Like, I think that is they could have done that. That's like the two things I think they should have done was they should have had a 32 gig model that cost the same as the regular Switch, or had made the system 300 and not 350. And I think they could have actually given the thing a performance boost. Granted, they can do that with a system update. They did it with the PSP. So like Sony did it with the PSP. So who knows? But, and I mean, technically Nintendo has been playing with like upping clock speeds in certain games throughout the system's life. But yeah, those are the two things I think they should have done. But are those like, I don't know. I don't think...
Is it enough to call it a pro? Yeah,
I don't think they're wholly deal breaking. Right? Like I because where I am with the Switch right now is I already kind of like the system as it is, and I do think, you know, a bad port is like way less common than people make it out to be. Like,
if you're playing games other than Age of Calamity, you're having a good time.
Yeah, pretty much. Like the Outer Worlds on Switch.
Age of Calamity, when you play it in co-op, is almost unplayable.
like for every
my wife and oof.
For every like the Outer Worlds, there's like a Doom Eternal or a Tony Hawk or a Sniper Elite 4 or I'm trying to think what else, Skyrim, I guess. You know, there's so many like really good like games that, I mean, to me it just comes off more like bad optimization than like the Switch is just it's got the power of a PS2.
And I think the other thing is a lot of people don't play their Switch in handheld that much, so this seems like more of an upgrade just for handheld. If you're somebody who plays docked 90% of the time, why should you care? But then again, why should you care?
Like, don't get me wrong, viewers at home, I'm not saying like you should be grateful for the Switch OLED, you fucker, buy it now. Like, if you don't want to buy it, good. Like that's not the point. Yeah.
I already said I won't buy it.
Yeah.
So.
I probably will, but at like the end of the year.
I think not even
at like release.
I think I might, just on the basis that I play a lot of games in handheld mode and I like the idea of a slightly bigger screen with the OLED, and also the fact that historically I have bought versions of console that are like
Outer
slightly
Worlds
better.
So bad.
Yeah, Outer Worlds on Switch is so bad.
Like, I normally, like, for instance, people are like, "Oh, Ninja Gaiden Trilogy Master Collection doesn't run that great." Runs fine, you can play it.
Like
Outer Worlds, not so much.
Like I historically
like, it's literally don't buy it.
regardless of whether it be Nintendo or not. Like, I had a PSP 2000, I upgraded to the 3000. I had a DS Lite, I got the DSi. If I like a system, like I'm totally all for it being better, even if just those improvements are just like quality of life improvements. Like that's more than enough for me. But I'm not saying that is the reason why you should buy it. That's just my personal take on it.
Yeah, I'm not going to upgrade because I don't see the need to. I play docked a lot, and when I don't play docked, I'm fine with the screen. Like,
yeah,
I guess I would like a nicer screen, but I don't care enough.
See, like, if anything,
it's not a good value proposition.
Yeah, like if anything, as I said, I'm happy that they didn't release a model that I had to feel super inclined to buy, or else like, oh, every game on the base model is going to run like shit. I mean, that's basically what's happening with the new consoles too, where it's like people who were playing like PlayStation 4 exclusives at 30 FPS the entire generation, all of a sudden, like, hey, like Horizon 2 on the PS5 might have a 60 FPS mode. Well, who the fuck is going to play Horizon on the PS4 at 30 FPS? Like, you'll have to be crazy to do that. And it's like, yeah, I'll do it. It's not
people
really...
need to ask them. People need to ask themselves, what purpose does this particular console, whatever it happens to be, whether it's a Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation, what purpose does this serve for me specifically? The conversation never becomes about that because everyone's trying to judge what the quality of it is, whether it's worth it. And if we're getting into like the conversation of like, how many people play it on handheld, I think that there is a misconception of how many people with the Nintendo Switch actually play the thing in handheld.
Didn't Nintendo themselves do a poll and it was like a 50-50 split? Like,
yes, it is an incredible amount of people. And this isn't just like using numbers for like the Switch Lite, considering the Switch Lite makes up about like, I would say 16 or so % of the actual like buyer base for the Switch. But the like this type of console introduction into the trademarked family of systems is not so egregious. It just improves upon certain quality of life aspects that were otherwise weaker on the already existing model.
Yeah,
and it doesn't serve too much of any other purpose. It literally just enhances tabletop mode. And
here's another one.
Yeah,
that I think people tend to only think of their playing preferences, and also get into this weird headspace where better is better, and we only want to play the best because we're real gamers or something ridiculous like that. Like, because another one I see a lot is, well, who the hell wants an Xbox Series S? And I have an Xbox Series S, and it's awesome. It has almost all of the same features. Sure, it's all digital, but I have it downstairs, and then upstairs in my bedroom I have my regular Xbox One, so I can still play all my old disc games on that one. And I'll probably upgrade to an Xbox Series something at some point that has a disc, probably when they come out with the Pro for the Xbox Series X. But it fits my playing needs because I don't need anything besides that. I just wanted something to play old games better, mostly, to be honest with you, at this point with the Xbox.
And I guess the last thing I want to talk about, the last thing I want to touch upon in regards to all of this is really the fact that everything everyone has wanted out of like a Pro model, like whenever anyone talks about a Pro model, like what do they say? They're like, well, I want it to have a new chip that can run things that the original Switch can't run. I want DLSS. I want a 1080p screen. I want new Joy-Cons. I want a new dock. Like, to me, that just sounds like you want a next generation Switch. And if anything, I think this OLED model and the fact that there is a new chip in the works that is like, that we do know is like substantially generations later, to me, that just says that if anything, that means like, no, we're not getting a Pro model. We're just going to get the Switch 2 in 2 years, which makes sense because by 2023, the Switch is going to be like 7.5, 8 years old. And that's a pretty long life for a video. Like that's a pretty now it's the standard, but yeah, that is
like,
That is
There
like
is
a console
no
life.
doubt in my mind that there's going to be like a Switch 2, and like that's probably what people are thinking that the Pro is supposed to be.
Yeah,
Just the
like I
fact that
said, all
everyone
the
jumped on the
insiders.
idea
Yeah.
of it being right now at only 4 years of the Switch's life, when this thing hasn't peaked, when this thing is still making gangbuster sales right now, is ridiculous. Like I can't get how everyone unanimously decided. Yeah, right now it makes sense to do that, to do the whole Switch.
Yeah,
2
the way
thing.
the way the new Switch, the way those rumors that all the insiders have been talking about makes the chipset sound. It doesn't sound like a refresh. It sounds like a whole new system.
Yeah.
So at that point, yeah, it would be. I the only way I could see, and right now, like you were saying, with at this point of the Switch's life cycle, with it doing as well as it does, it doesn't make sense to release a Pro.
Yeah, the system
only-
has 85 million users. Like, that's
And it hasn't peaked.
Yeah,
It's
that's as-
selling
that's as
more
many
now than it has
consoles-
ever-
There's still people.
Yeah.
There are still people that are asking for stuff like just a Mario Odyssey 2, a Breath of the Wild 2, like games that you could
Give me
very
Punch Out!
easily
Give me
make.
Punch Out, you cowards!
Games that you can very easily make on a Switch right now that will work and function just fine without needing any sort of bells and whistles like they're asking for. Like, I don't think they understand that that's exactly sort of what we're looking at here is another 2 years just about.
If for
maybe
some
more.
reason Nintendo says that we want to take the, I think this is more going to be a PS or maybe even a DS type of situation. Well, I'd say like one of those PS2 type of situations where this is going to sell beyond when the successor system comes out, especially because they'll be able to at that point probably be like $150 Switch that's portable only for your kids, like the 2DS. So they can bang it against stuff and not break things and have a system. And I think there's going to be a lot of sales from those. But the only way that I can see a Pro making sense is if Nintendo says, no, we're going to stick with just the Switch and not have a successor system for like a full 10 years or something. And then in 2 to 3 years, we could see some sort of refresh to get a bump. But even then, it's not going to be, I don't think, the sort of things that we're hearing from insiders now, because that once again sounds like a sequel system to me. I don't know. I'm not an insider, and maybe it is for some Pro in the future. But even then, like a new system makes more sense to me. And like we were saying, those rumors I think are true. It's just not for. I just don't believe it's for what they think it is. Or
it also just like inherently doesn't really like make. I think it makes more sense to have a successor than a Pro, because like it's not like the. I think the reason why people don't want a 2 is just because of the finality of it being a successor as opposed to just like a better version of the thing they own. But like I don't think that's like gonna be the case with a Switch 2. Like I think that, I mean, if they're gonna do what I think it's gonna be like the Wii or the DS to the 3DS, where there is a backwards compatibility functionality, because of course it's gonna be a straight successor, and like there will probably be like a couple years of cross-gen between the two, where there's still going to be, I mean, it's what Sony is doing with the PS5. It's what Xbox is doing with the Series X and S, where it's like, yeah, you have games that are next generation enhanced, but, they still also work on the original, on the previous generation model. But then after a couple years, they can just drop the Switch and focus solely on the Switch 2, which I think that's like what people want out of the Switch Pro anyway, if they're saying like, yeah, they should just, have a console that can run games that the original model can't. It's like at that point, yeah, just like focus all of your attention into a console that can do a lot more than just like, oh, the fucking whatever, it's faster. I don't know. It just seems like it's like the whole issue with the Pro model is you either run the risk of Nintendo releasing something that still isn't really using its full potential, or you make something that makes the original model obsolete. And it's like, what do you choose? And I think at this point, almost 5 years in, and with the way things are shaping up, because the NVIDIA insider says that new Ampere chip is not even supposed to enter production until next year, and then start shipping in 2023, which again sounds more like a successor than just a mid-generation Pro model.
Right.
So the other issue with the Pro model, as well as for the past, I would say, year now, a lot of the articles referencing this Pro model existing have been based on bad faith arguments about Nintendo needing to grab the same audience that's attached to the power like of the Series X and the PS5,
Yeah.
where that particular market is so incredible, not irrelevant, but it's not something that like they need to so desperately grasp a hold
It's funny
of.
because I think
it's a super competitive market, and there's not enough room for three.
It's
players.
a super competitive market, but they already own a fucking massive portion of that market to begin with.
Also, Raio dropped out. By Raio.
Oh yeah, he had to do something.
The Switch. The Switch is a very good companion system, and I know a lot of people that have either a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, or are planning on getting one, and have a Switch to be a companion system to it. Number one, because it's a handheld, and so you can take it places, and number two, because it has Nintendo games. Like,
well,
it's
I think we talked about this before. Honestly, it makes more sense that like if they wanted to get into that market of like being toe-to-toe with the Xbox Series and the PS5, if anything, it makes more sense for them to make a cheaper model, because like it makes more like I think more people are probably are probably going to want, like, listen, this thing isn't running Doom as good as my big boy console, but I want to play Animal Crossing, so I'm gonna get the Switch Lite, and that way, you know, you get the handheld and you get the game, and that, you know. Or they can always do that Switch Stick idea. Nintendo, call me. Bring back that Nintendo Switch dongle iteration, and you know, charge $150 for that thing, and like that makes more sense to someone who already owns these systems than a big boy, unless, you know, they make just a whole new one.
I would also advise people whenever they're spectating, like, all of the rumors, all the reports, and whatever discoveries are being made, please, for the love of God, don't just focus on like the thing that'll make graphics go burr, or the like.
Yeah, it's not
any of that stuff. Like look for the features you do not expect. Look for the weird hardware, like I say hardware components, but like, look for the like the new 3DS nub. Look for the more enhanced version of this already existing like niche technology that already exists within the system. Look for those types of things, because that's going to set that console as an entirely different console from the currently existing lineup. That's what they do. This has been Nintendo's MO for the longest time.
Yeah.
They introduce like a bunch of weird little things and changes to the technology that already exists within their system, to the point where like, this is the selling point. This is what we need to sell people on. Like a fucking nub. You have different shoulder buttons for the new 3DS, better 3D tracking, or better camera tracking for the 3D gimmick on the new 3DS, NFC in the middle of the console instead of on a little stand that's separate from it that costs money. And like, they can do those things, and they even showed that they're doing that specifically with the OLED. Like, they're focusing on the LAN port, they're focusing on the audio enhancements, they're focusing on the OLED screen.
They're focusing on redoing the cooling of the system, because the vent system is completely different. Yeah,
right. It's all of these little small things that they themselves nitpick and focus on. And so when you only hear about like 4K, and that's pretty much that has literally been the discussion. It's just, wow, 4K graphics, game look better. Okay.
Which is funny, because even if they had rolled out a Switch Pro, like what are the odds that it was even like I'm sure this new chip is going to be substantially more powerful, but like, yeah, really, what are the odds that it's going to be running at native 4K anyway? I mean, even the new systems don't like run at native 4K most of the time.
I think it'll still be just proper upscaling for screens that aren't already supported.
Yeah, they're going to go in ham on the DLSS stuff, which is going to be interesting. Yeah. That's like the main reason. Yeah.
The thing that I would be worried about as well with DLSS, and I know that there's some odds and ends to this, DLSS does not support every single game on a particular platform's library. Like, you look at the current supported list for just PC games, there's not a lot.
Yeah.
So if you think that like every single Nintendo game for the Switch under the sun is going to suddenly get DLSS support, I would hold back that expectation to like the first degree. I would not even consider any of the older games before this console launches to even get any support whatsoever for that. I'm just assuming it'll get just future games or maybe a handful of future games. It's not a guaranteed thing because DLSS isn't a it's not something you just slap into the hardware and be like, wow, here we go.
It works.
It's a magic button. It's a magic button.
You have to code it into the engine of the game itself. You have to.
No, it's a button. You put the chip in and it makes things 4K.
Awdoodle in chat says
no. It's the turbo button on the Switch.
Yeah. I also want to address what Awdoodle said.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So do you think the Switch 2 is 2023? If so, I wouldn't get an OLED. I'm not going to say anything. That's been kind of
release dates.
That's been kind of the focus of right now.
We're not insiders.
Is that we're just looking into things, and I think it's fine to make assumptions, and it's fine to use the context clues to come to your own conclusion. That being said, will it be 2023? I don't know. It could be. It could not be.
I don't think so, because if the chip is rolling out in 2023, I
it
feel
could
like
just be 2024.
I feel like Nintendo would wait till it's in mass production. So
here's the best way to do it.
At the latest, at the earliest, 2024 would be a 7-year life cycle. I'm thinking late 2024. This is completely just me throwing numbers out, but late 2024, 2025 makes sense to me. But once again, I'm not a prophet. I'm not an insider. This is just me looking and thinking what I think makes sense.
I think. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, until we get a feel for what the end of the Switch generation looks like until we understand like whether or not we're really in the second half or if we're just right smack dab in the middle, like currently, like right now, there is a possibility that whatever this brand new Switch is, like this more like Nintendo Switch but better console is, it could literally just release the second to last year of this console's generation right before they do the next generation Nintendo console. The new 3DS, I think, had the same kind of issue where it released very late into the 3DS's life, and like it had its moment in the limelight, and a lot of people went crazy for the new 2DS XL, which is like probably the best version of the 3DS you can possibly buy.
Which I think that there's ultimate DS.
Yeah. Like I think that scenario is still just as possible, because I know that Doug Bowser had said something a while ago saying like they're gonna try and redefine like what a console's lifespan means or some weird shit. But just depending on how the demand for the current market is, because the Nintendo Switch is one of the highest demanded consoles in the market right now, and if we're assuming that this is midlife, that's a pretty good sign that this could go on for like another like 4 or 5 more years, making it close to like a decade-long lifespan. That's still very that's still very like unclear. So yeah, we don't know. We can't really make that kind of prediction. But once we start seeing stuff in the OS, once we like... Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. The second you see a new mention, like a mention of a new chip in the OS, give it like 2.5 years. There you go. That's the definitive answer as to when the Switch 2 is coming.
Yeah, like second, if we get like...
the second like OS like 16.0 comes out and they have like NX2 dash like XYZ. That's when you know the Switch 2 is coming out in like 2 years.
They have RAM listings and it just says Black Knight on it. It's like, there you go.
Here's another clue. When Nintendo stops having 3 to 4 first-party games in development at a time, and it's just all like, how come the only game Nintendo is announcing right now is Mario Tennis 2 or whatever? Yeah. That means that all of their teams are working on the Switch 2 internally. Like that. Yes. That's like the clearest thing, and you saw that with the Wii U, and you saw that with the Wii, and you saw that hell with the ever since the N64. You see things dry up for Nintendo. They didn't really do that with the Super Nintendo because they kept stuff on there. But ever since then, like, yeah, their first party output really starts drying up when there's only like a year or two left for the console.
But honestly, like, you shouldn't also let your like FOMO dictate. Like,
Yeah.
if you think the Switch OLED is worth it to you, like, you shouldn't like sit around for the next 2 years thinking like, oh, any day now they're gonna announce an even betterer one, because that's what leads to stuff like this, like Switch Pro nonsense.
And at the same time, don't feel obligated to buy it to have the newest Switch if it's not actually going to be something you use.
If it is convenient for you,
and you have the money,
and you have the money, go for it. It's like make it about you. Don't make it about FOMO or what anybody else is doing. Like, this isn't you're not really gonna miss out on too much if you're playing like myself or either of these guys. Like, if you play like just the console version of the Switch, you're not missing out on much.
Yeah.
Maybe the LAN port, but again, like that's.
But the LAN port takes one of the USB slots, so you can just use a converter. USB,
that's true.
Like a LAN adapter, and it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, my only hope though with that LAN port is that it's like completely uncapped. Like it actually supports like full gigabit, and it's not being kneecapped by the USB 2.0 connections. But that's the kind of stuff we'll only know when the thing is out, and like we can't say anything about that right now.
Also, another thing to sort of avoid, because I know it's a popular topic. I know that the OLED model is releasing separately from Metroid Dread. Please, for the love of God, don't try and predict when these consoles come out in conjunction with insert popular game here.
The Wild 2.
Because I'm telling you this right now, all this is just really good, like,
timing,
marketing, and business.
Yeah,
that's all it is. It's not like the game is being bundled with the OLED model, though. To be fair, there's probably like a
it's
Metroid
like with the Switch
bundle.
Lite.
Yeah. It's like with the Switch Lite and what game came out with
Link's Awakening?
That? Yeah, Link's Awakening. Like that is a like both a very good coincidence, but also very good business for both the console and the game being released at the same time. It's just generating a lot of demand, and that's a very smart thing for Nintendo to do. That can happen to any game.
I think
absolutely
Dread,
any game.
My prediction for it, and this is a crazy prediction, maybe not too crazy. I think it'll sell about 5 to 6 million units, which is a lot considering Metroids usually cap out at 3 million, if anything. But it seems like it just has so much momentum and a lot going on for it right now. I think it came out at the right time, and as long as the game is actually good, that's the thing. But if it is a good game, I think it's going to hit 5 to 6 million. It's my prediction here.
The thing that I actually think it might go a little bit higher, like maybe even close to 10.
Well,
I know. That's one step at a time. I'm only saying that because I'm really interested in the recent demand for virtual console titles on the 3DS and the Wii U.
Yeah. Well, they were selling out of they were selling out of physical copies of Samus Returns.
Yeah.
What they used to be just stocked up everywhere.
And like,
what's
I
funny
see
about that too is that's another thing with entitled gamers is people are like, I can't believe Nintendo's not reprinting, and I'm like, why would they? Like, because they would have to have done that months and months before. Why would they have thought to reprint a game on a system that they no longer support that was maybe not a failure, but not a success? Like, they wouldn't have known that. That would have been wasted money, especially when it's available digitally on the 3DS.
Wait a minute. Why can't these guys believe that Nintendo wouldn't reprint this stuff? Why didn't you buy it when it came out?
That's the other thing too.
Why didn't you get it, buddy?
I always give crap to a lot of, and I first of all, I like Golden Sun, and second of all, I would love Isaac in Smash Bros. But I always give a lot of shit to the Isaac fans. I'm like, if as many people that say they want Isaac went out and bought Dark Dawn, there would be more Golden Sun games. and Isaac would probably be in Smash.
I
Like,
want every
sorry.
single person. I want every single person who pissed their pants when seeing the Metroid Prime 4 logo to actually go and buy that game.
But
Because
once
I
again, the
guarantee a
caveat
majority
is
of them,
is that it's good, because
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, it has to be that, you know, like you talk about Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. That's a legitimately great game. Like, it
Yeah.
would if it came out and it was crap. You know, like even Samus Returns, I feel like is good but not great. It's like okay. This looks like it's resolving a lot of the issues I had in that game. But if this launches and is like, you know, like a 9 out of 10 title, then I think the sky's the limit for sales, because it has momentum, it has buzz. It's releasing at a great time with new hardware. Like, I think it has like everything going for it.
It's releasing at a time where there's no awkward like stalling period where they're not really marketing the game. Like we've got a couple months till the game. Well, actually, yeah. It's October 8th, right? So we got a couple months until that comes out, and
it's one of Nintendo's big holiday games. It doesn't have.
Yeah.
It's at the peak of the Switch's success. There aren't many competitors from Nintendo's first party. Like it just, and yeah, Aw Doodle, I'm also buying it even if it's bad, but I'm just saying not everybody's gonna buy it if it's bad. I think it's positioned itself really well, so it'll be interesting. I'm also interested to see what the next Fire Emblem will do.
But this is all getting very off topic.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think
Sales
I
is fun to
think
talk about.
now is actually a great time to wrap this
Wrap
up.
it up.
I think we've
Yeah.
said
Wrap it up.
everything. We went a little longer than I actually thought we would, but at least it's not like 3 hours this time. But I think we covered basically everything we wanted to say, and it was great having you two and Raio on.
Mm-hmm.
And
good being on.
I hope you all have a pretty lovely day. I will be updating the description with links to Raio and HawK's Twitters and respective channels and outlets and all that. And if there's do you guys have anything else you want to say?
No, man.
I'm actually on Tuesday night. I'm gonna be doing like a deep dive of a lot of the rumors and stories and just a lot of the very specific details around the Switch Pro stuff, because like there is a discussion, like a much larger discussion to be had about like the psychology and like the storytelling of shit, like trying to force console war narratives onto a place that is completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And
That sounds a lot smarter than the stuff that I've been saying.
Yeah, like that's there's a lot more that I'm looking through and I'm seeing, like connecting the dots basically. But that's gonna be like on Tuesday night.
All right. Well,
I don't know. I love that pushing your consumer preferences has become a way to show your individualistic expressions and styles, to express your individualistic style.
Yeah.
Nah, dude, you're
right
big.
now.
You're big brain because you bought the box that you think is best.
No, but it's so funny that
Yeah,
like
it
I want to
is.
wear I want to go out and tell everybody how much I love this product that I bought. I want to pay more money to wear merchandise to the company to advertise for them, because look how cool I am, because I'm a shill for a giant corporate company.
Nah, dude,
Like, it's-
Game Pass is actually bad. Like Jim Ryan was correct. Like Sony the best. Like
yeah, but like it's so funny.
I
like,
am very smart.
yeah, but that also leads to stuff where like people defend like I said, like Nintendo for like their for doing a shitty limited release strategy for some other games and stuff. But, like,
but they put Byleth, Fire Emblem, and Smash. Therefore, they're a horrible business and anti-consumerist.
yeah, that's the real problem, right? I love you, gamers. I love all of you, every one of you.
And with that, I bid adieu. Links.
Well, I can't wait to see the comments on this one. They're gonna be something.
Yeah, 0 comments. No.
Damn.
No.
I think links in the description below. If you want to
Links also
support
in
us.
Zelda. All right, bye.
Yeah. Donate to us on Patreon if you want to support the channel. Someone actually asked me a couple of weeks ago what we do with the Patreon money. It goes directly into the website. It goes directly into content. We don't really.
We don't make any money.
It's
off
not.
The site.
It's not
Yeah.
split up in like any matter. It just goes directly into maintaining the website, and it really does help us in the long run. It keeps us going. Join our Discord if you want to see us rant about information strings on switchbrew.org and just generally talk about video games in general. You can find that all in the description. Until then, I hope you all have a lovely Sunday, and always remember to return to the source.